Everybody to Game Time with Doc and Lurch. I'm just bringing up my monitor here on the phone real quick so that we can keep track of who comes in and out of the, well, not who, but how many comes in and out of the stream. See who's monitoring everything. I've got my cohort Lurch over there on the side.
Yo,
Say hi,
yo.
Lurch. And we're here as we are here every week from Tuesday, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Central Standard Time, where we, the people from Eclectic Endeavors, the people that bring you the Gaming Arts Media Entertainment Expo, Picnic at the End of the Universe, and of course, the game day at Holdfast Brewing Company, among other various things throughout town and throughout the years. Anything and everything having to do with the nerddom in Springfield, we're pretty much involved with. I am, of course, director of cross promotions and the panel director for this year's game, and Lurch is the co-chairman and the director of electronic gaming, which he's been director of electronic gaming since year 2.
Yep.
Um,
Your dose.
and this is officially, since we didn't have any during the COVID years, this year's will be year 12 and our also final year of games. So if you get a chance, please come out and see us for game. As you can see, we've got our dates clarified as October. I don't know what September is. October 14th, 15th, and 16th at the Springfield Expo Center. It is $10 to get in for the entire weekend. There are no other pricing, nothing like it. It's just a straight $10. Also, our vendors are going to be contacted and invited individually. So, based on their years of support with game, so that's how you'll get in. So it's not going to be a paid vendor spots like it has been in the past. There's not going to be like clubs and orgs paying to get their spots, but everybody gets their spots according to what they've done previously. But we're going to try to make this last year go out with a bang. We're only going to include those things where we do have people to run them. So at this time, we do not have anybody running the costume contest or the art show. So we will not have those unless we get volunteers to do it. If you would like to volunteer, join the Eclectic Endeavors group on Facebook and come to our next meeting. We will periodically have meetings either live or via like Zoom, Skype, Discord, what have you. And you can weigh in if you would like to volunteer just as a henchman, or if you'd like to volunteer to actually run some of the events. Also, you can contact myself for panels, and you can contact Greg Pullman if you want to be a dungeon master in the tabletop area running a game, or if you want to do anything in electronic gaming, contact Lurch here. But that's what we're here, and that's what we're all about. We're and what Game and Eclectic Endeavors is about. We're part of the Springfield Regional Art System, and what we do is we promote the education behind all of these nerdy hobbies. You know, when I was younger, I'm 51 years old now, but when I was younger, you didn't think of a lot of these hobbies as something that's going to get you a career. But nowadays, we got people moving on from these hobbies to becoming voice actors, prop designers, puppeteers, and animatronic specialists, comic book artists, animators, game designers, and so this is an actual business that people can grow from their hobby. In fact, although we're not going to name any names, we have a friend that is now working for Warner Brothers that we're very proud of. And until we get permission to give their name out, we're not going to. But we've mentioned it in the past. We're very proud. They're now working with Warner Brothers, and they recently got to meet Guillermo del Toro, which was, of course, one of their idols in directing. So we're if they hear what we're talking about, we're so proud of them, and that just shows you what you can do with this. People have gone on to, like I said, develop their own comic book lines. They've been game designers. I have designed and written onto role-playing games before. I've also written and published a short story. I do panels and stuff about writing. Lurch is big into theater arts and improv and writing. So we're all deeply invested in the nerdy hobbies, and that's what we want to do, is promote that, so we can do like some after school programs for kids and schools that might join nerdy clubs. We've done scholarships in the past, things like that. But anyway, that's what we're all about. I'm going to do a real quick sound check. I did one earlier with just me where I popped on just long enough to do a sound check, but I want to make sure that we hear Lurch really good too. So let me bring.
You got to be able to hear me and Totodile here.
Yeah, and Totodile. Yeah, I saw you were flashing your Totodile. Let's see, where's my mouse? Mousey, we go. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Go. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Go. Check 1 2. Yep, I hear us both. We're sounding good. Okay, and then let me bring up the pop out chat so that we got that as part of our thing, so I can see if anybody says anything in the chat channel while we're at it. All right, and we're ready to get this show on the road. As you know, we run several different topics throughout this show, generally ending with our media coverage, and of course our media coverage is full of spoilers, so I'll warn you right now, and we'll warn you right before that one starts, that there may be spoilers ahead. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, you might want to tune out at that time. But first on our list of things to talk about, we have a State of Play coming in March. That's of course one of Lurch's topics.
Yep. PlayStation has announced a State of Play coming tomorrow, 4 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, whatever zones you're in. They say it'll be about a 20-minute presentation, including new game reveals, in addition to updates on previously announced titles, with a focus on their Japanese-made games. So, of course, there's speculation. I'm hoping to see some stuff about Forspoken, personally, Forspoken and Final Fantasy 16. Some people I've seen, some people I know are hoping that it'll talk about, show something about Street Fighter 6, or I can't think of the other thing. There's another Capcom game that people are hoping to see. Anyway, they'll be showing. It won't be. They said not to expect anything about PlayStation VR 2.
Yeah. So expect that at a later date.
Yeah. Either the hardware or games for PSVR 2. I'm hoping. I'm not expecting this. I'm hoping that we get some details on the Project Spartacus that PlayStation, there's rumors, there's been talks about for PlayStation having, but it's hard to say whenever they say that the focus of this one is intending on Japanese games. So we'll see what it is. I want to make sure everyone knew about it and they can catch the presentation, whether you catch it live or catch it on YouTube whenever you get off of work. Which is probably how I'll have to watch it, is when I get off of work.
Yeah, because there's the schedule on the screen right now. It's Central Time is 4 p.m.
Yep.
But if you're at like Greenwich Mean Time, it's 10 p.m. And if you're at ACT time, which is I think Australia, that's like 9 a.m. the following day. So yeah, and when they say focus on Japanese, and a lot of these games, at least in part, are made in Japan, so it's sometimes hard to say what exactly is coming out of Japan or not.
One game I am expecting to see is Ghostwire Tokyo. That game comes out later this month. It's based in Tokyo and is developed by a Japanese studio, or a predominantly Japanese team. And unless I'm mistaken, it's a PlayStation exclusive as well. So I'm expecting Ghostwire Tokyo to have an appearance at tomorrow's State of Play. And
And
I'm
then,
hoping for some Forspoken, which, by the way, it's not one of my subjects I have for today, but Forspoken was just announced to be delayed to October. It's supposed to come out in May.
right.
Um,
And of course, Sony itself is out of Japan, so uh, that means anything that's a true Sony development could be on that list.
yeah, yeah, a lot of things. PlayStation has a lot of teams over in Japan working on things.
That's very true.
Um, it's also worth keeping in mind, while it says a focus will focus on Japanese games, there's still room for non-Japanese, some non-Japanese
There
games to
might
be
be
talked
some
about.
mentions at least, yeah.
Yeah, but in a 20-minute presentation, I am expecting it to mostly stick to what they're saying
I think probably
predominantly being.
the most highly anticipated is that Final Fantasy 16 update. That's what a lot of people are wanting, because I think in the whole Sony catalog, Final Fantasy is still the franchise that everybody
Yeah,
wants to know about.
it's curious because Square Enix is an independent third-party publisher, and they are predominantly making their games still PlayStation exclusive, or at least, or at minimum, timed exclusivity. Who knows how
Mm,
long though? Final Fantasy VII Remake was supposed to be for a year, they say, but it's been, what are we at now? A year and a half,
and
maybe even up to 2 years. I can't remember exactly when that came out. I think it was a 2020 title. Uh, so and it's still exclusive to PlayStation. Like, it was a year when it came out to PS5, and now it's been on the PS5 for a while. So,
yeah, and
but yeah,
well,
I'm hoping to see some Final Fantasy 16. I'm hoping to see some. I'm expecting to see some Ghostwire Tokyo. I'm hoping to see some Forspoken. Um, I'm not sure. Uh, I'm not too big into Street Fighter, but all we have for Street Fighter now is like a really brief trailer that shows an ultra buff Ryu and one other character that kind of like posing for each other, and a logo that looks like it came out of a standard template with the letters SF. But
who knows?
the new logo didn't look too terribly exciting.
Yeah,
It's like when McDonald's changed from the bright colors and the fun look to we're going to be adult now and be just kind of gray stone.
yeah. And when you think about the Final Fantasy, it has been a Sony title pretty much most of its American life, except that when it first came over the U.S., it was Nintendo because
Yeah.
Sony didn't have a
The
console yet.
yeah, the first 6 games were Nintendo, and then starting with 7 onward, it's
They've been on the
been
PlayStation,
it's it's been pretty heavily favored towards PlayStation. Not that they haven't had multi-platform games, uh,
right?
but they have favored the PlayStation
Usually first
brand.
released
So,
on PlayStation, if nothing else. Yeah.
yeah, first or exclusive content, or
Hmm.
and sometimes that first is a matter of many years.
Yeah.
So
Bonus levels, stuff like that, extra DLCs,
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
that's exactly it. And PlayStation is probably by far one of their most heavily monetized games that they've gotten in Sony. Sony has made a lot of money on the Final Fantasy title. Uh, Overall, they it's just one of them that people keep coming back for more. And in fact, there's still a lot of people out there that claim that Final Fantasy VII is one of the best games they ever played. So
yeah.
yeah, all right. Well, so we're gonna have to have people check in on that state of play tomorrow and see what all is going on. Okay, we're gonna
Yeah,
move
yeah,
on
yeah.
to the next thing. Now I've got a special Kickstarter this week. I like to cover something on Kickstarter. This is called One Shot Dungeon for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. And a brief synopsis of what it is One Shot Dungeon gathers a small collection of 5 ready-to-use D&D 5e dungeons for low-level characters. Sometimes you don't have time to prepare your gaming session. Maybe you just want to gather it with some friends for a one-shot adventure, possibly introduce them to the hobby. You could need fresh material to enrich your campaign. In each of these cases, One Shot Dungeon is an ace up your sleeve. Now, as I've done before, I'm giving you this pretty close to the end of the Kickstarter. It's got 6 days left. But what makes this one kind of unique is they were only asking for approximately $54 US is their goal. They've already made that with $1,026. The big thing about this one is, I mean, it's only got one tier of backing, and it's a PDF backing, but it's approximately $2. Backing for $2, you get a PDF copy of the One Shot Dungeon, and you get it in March 2022. So they're already ready to go, or by the end of this month, you should get your PDF copy. So for such a tiny investment, you can get this little thing, and it's just the PDF one-shots. So it's a nice little thing, almost no investment at all. If you're first sticking your toes into the Kickstarter thing, this would be an excellent way to get started, and you're supporting a very small publisher who's obviously not asking for a huge investment or anything. They are trying to just get their product out. Hey, Dispersed is on in the chat. Good to see you too. It's been up and down with COVID, and Lurch was down for COVID pretty bad there for a little bit. But we're back, and we're doing Tuesdays instead of Wednesdays now. Anyway, but back to the topic. So this requires very little investment on anybody's part, and they can start using a Kickstarter and get in on the One Shot Dungeon. And as you can see, it's still fairly professionally laid out, and they've got some nice graphics and everything for these One Shot Dungeons. You also get PNG files for blank maps and creature tokens, 1-inch square scale, and 9 item cards representing the most important items. So you can print those out if you have like card stock. And see, and then the risk and challenges in this one, it's ready. So it's just waiting on one more proofread before it goes to the publisher, or goes to you, basically. So unlike a lot of Kickstarters, there's really next to no risk of not getting the product. It's pretty much ready to go. So it's a nice little quick, instant gratification, impulse buy kind of thing. And if you end up not liking what you got, you're out $2. I mean, who's going to really complain about blowing $2? I mean, I blow $2 on a candy bar.
Candy.
Yes, candy. Okay, so and that'll be my Kickstarter suggestion for this week. We'll catch Kickstarter again next week, but we're going to go on to Lurch's next topic, which is from the Game Informer. It looks like developing a live action God of War series.
Yeah. So Amazon, according to Deadline, Amazon is developing a live action God of War show. A live action series sounds pretty damn cool to me. I love the God of War franchise. I'm God of War Ragnarok, the next God of War game, is one of my most anticipated games in development right now. And there's actually been a lot of announcements or rumors or other stories coming out recently about popular movies or popular games becoming movies and shows We just had the Uncharted movie that came out, which I went and saw that a few days ago. A few days before I saw the Batman, I went and saw Uncharted. But I liked it. It was pretty fun. It was basically what you would hope for from a movie based on Uncharted, you know.
Yeah, I was
And
tempted to
then
watch Uncharted
the
instead of the Batman.
yeah, and then and then we got this God of War, and we are getting there's been talk about a BioShock, I think, series, and um there's I can't think of what else there was, but yeah, a whole bunch of shows, a whole bunch of whole bunch of games are getting their own movies and shows these days. And this one, it sounds like it's still early in development, but I'm personally, the big question is when is this going to take place? Is this going to be like Greek era Kratos, or is this going to be Nordic era Kratos? I'm personally hoping it's going to be the Nordic era Kratos. I think that phase of his life would be a lot more interesting on screen with him and his relationship with his son and whatever happens out there in the woods or out there in the Nordic wildlife and all that. But and then have flashbacks to when he was younger and more rageful and destroying everything. I think a lot of that is just he's more rounded, more developed of a character, whereas before he was, and as fun as the old games were, his character was a little too one-sided, just pure rage all the time.
Well, but it is important to note that they are in negotiations, so some other streaming service and production company may win out over Amazon. You never know. I
Yeah,
mean, because Warner Brothers and HBO have been vying for these kind of contracts, as has Paramount Plus.
yeah.
And Netflix is trying to beef up their catalog so they can stay on top of the streaming service too. So you never know. This might end up coming out as a Netflix product instead,
Yeah,
or
and
something on Paramount Plus,
they did a pretty good they did a pretty good job with The Witcher.
right?
Um, this might end up being too similar to The Witcher for the Netflix service to want to grab it. Um, but I do think that they could do a really good job with it.
Yeah.
Oh, this article gives us a few examples. There's a Ghost of Tsushima movie in development. There's a Last of Us TV series in development at HBO. Plus, Paramount Plus has the upcoming Halo series, and Paramount also is doing the Knuckles TV show. These
Yep.
are just like recent ones that we've learned about.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And then you've got I mean, there's so many streaming services out there that are vying for this kind of stuff. I mean, even though I know you wouldn't be one to go in on this because you're like me, not a really big Apple fan. Apple TV is getting the rights to some stuff too. I mean, they've got that Severance show, which isn't based on a video game or anything, but is an excellent title. They have the Foundation series, which is a Isaac Asimov book. Uh, so more and more of these other property adaptations are getting vied for as new content for these streaming services as they all try to rule their market. Speaking of Netflix, they're also raising their price on their base package by $1 a month starting next
Netflix
month.
is ra- Netflix is raising their prices again.
$1 a month
I mean, it's
next
not
month.
much. It's
No,
just
it's not that
slowly
much.
inching its way up. I think I started at like $6 a month, and now I'm up to like 15 a month now. All right,
Something
getting
like
right
that.
about
I
there.
just know that it went up $1 because I keep getting notifications on it just to warn me, in case
Yeah,
I want to opt out. But I'm pretty much with Netflix right now, and my one from the vault this week will actually be a Netflix movie. But anyway, so something to look forward to. God of War is even though I don't play a lot of the newer God of War, I played some of the older ones, the Greek mythology based ones. I played God of War a little bit, and
Yeah.
somewhere I think I have a CD-ROM of God of War still.
Now I don't know how. So since you haven't played the new one, the newest one, you realize like this is still the same character. This the Nordic game is a sequel to the Greek games.
Hmm.
It takes place, 12 or 15 years later or something. He's left Greece. He's found his way to this new Midgard place. Fell in love, had a child, and is still struggling with the pain of the and guilt of what he did in the previous games of killing all the gods and pretty much destroying Greece and the world of those old games.
And now he's being
What
confronted by the Scandinavian gods.
Yeah. Well, your whole objective in the newest game in God of War 2018 was your wife dies. Like your wife dies just before the game starts, and so you burn her body and you collect the ashes. And your wife's last, your wife's request was to sprinkle her ashes out at the top of the tallest mountain, and that is Kratos and Atreus' only goal is to get to the top of the tallest mountain with those ashes to sprinkle them out. And the things they fight along the way is the shit that gets in the way along the way.
I hear you.
Uh,
That makes sense.
yeah,
And
starting with one of the Nordic gods attacking them, um, coming after them for um, well, I don't want to like give away too much. I know the game's like
that's
4 years
fine.
old now, but yeah, one of the Nordic gods attacks Kratos, um, and Kratos is just trying to. Kratos tries to give this guy a chance to walk away, not knowing the guy's a god either. He's like, and he's like Kratos is towering over this guy. He's so much bigger than him, and he's like, "This is your chance to just walk away." And the guy punches him in the face. I don't recommend doing that. Punches him in the guy's punching Kratos, and Kratos is just standing there taking these hits. Till eventually, I think the guy uppercuts him so hard that he flies up in the air and crashes back down on the house or something. And at that point, Kratos is like, "All right, you're screwed," and just fucks him up. Gets into a huge epic brawl.
Intense.
Um, so Kratos in that game is trying to show restraint because he still does he feels remorse for what he did in the older games, um, and is just trying to fulfill his wife's final wishes while keeping his son alive.
Truth. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right,
So
so
I'm curious
we're
to
going to
see what
look
they do
forward
with
to
the
that.
show.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to look forward to that. Even if I don't necessarily play a game, that doesn't mean I'm not going to want to watch an adaptation of it. I didn't read the
Yeah.
Wheel of Time books, but I watched all the Wheel of Time TV series. I
I
haven't
did
managed to get
not
all the
fit.
way through Witcher, though.
I did not finish Wheel of Time. I watched a few episodes and then just kind of fell off of it.
I finished it, although I couldn't tell you what happened in the last episode. I think I dozed off.
Yeah.
um, but I haven't like managed to get through Witcher. I think I've gotten through like 3 episodes of Witcher, and that's it. Keep falling
No.
asleep.
I like The Witcher, but the first season, and a lot of people have brought this up. The first season was just strangely developed, where it was the time periods didn't make sense because
Mm. Of course, I never
basically,
played Witcher,
ba-
so
basically every episode every episode for The Witcher himself, time is advancing by like many, many years. Sometimes it's like 20, 30, 40 years for him and for Yennefer even. But um, episode one starts off at one time, starts off where Witcher's at one point in the timeline, and then there's this young girl, Sir Ciri, who is like 100 years later in the timeline. And as the story progresses, The Witcher keeps jumping ahead in time, gradually catching up to the time period that Ciri is in.
Weird. Well, like I said,
And
I didn't actually
you
play the game,
you
so
don't know that until like 2/3 into the first season or something. You don't know that that's what's happening until finally, like an episode ends or whatever with The Witcher at the same place where the first episode started for the girl, and you're like,
okay.
oh, now Kratos, now The Witcher guy,
Makes
for some
sense.
reason his name is skipping me right now. He's now where she started the show.
Who knows? Yeah.
It was
They
it
get
was
some
a
weird
very
time
strange
play on
design
some of these
choice.
things. Yeah. Okay.
And they never showed like a text to tell you like what year it was or how much time has passed. So like one of my complaints, and it wasn't partly because I didn't know how much time was passing and stuff, but like Yennefer would like betray people and kill people to get a specific job, and then the very next episode opens up with her, "Oh, I'm so bored at this job," and you don't realize she's been doing this job now for 35 years. It just one episode right into the next with no, you know, X number of years later, on there, you know,
So they're not
and
informing the audience.
and so I'm like, wow, this Yennefer is kind of a bitch. She'll do anything to get what she wants, and then immediately regret what she has. But
But then
I
you
don't,
realize if you're spending 35 years doing it, yeah, by about that time she might get bored
yeah,
with it.
yeah, spending decades doing,
The same thing over and over and over again. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Well, we're going to move on to our next topic. We're
all right,
actually
yeah.
making pretty good time here. It's only 8:30, and we're zooming through, which is okay because I kind of want to have some time for media this week. Uh, Speaking of which, if you're like me and you're a Star Trek fan, you probably caught last season of Picard. Well, this season, the first episode has dropped for Picard on Paramount Plus. So if you have a Paramount Plus account, you can watch Picard. Of course, that's where most of the Star Treks are moving anyway. And they're getting slowly pulled from the other streaming services to all make it onto Paramount. Um, and in this season, we've already seen that Q is going to be a major player in the game. Of course, Seven of Nine is back, joining us with everything. So,
Hold up, hold
and
up, hold up, hold up. Are these people names? Like, is
yeah,
7 of 9 a person?
yes. If you never watched the Star Trek franchises, you wouldn't recognize them. But Q is an alien super entity that comes in and plays like freaking by testing Picard and his crew at different times to try to prove that humans aren't worth surviving. And every time Picard and his crew always ends up beating him out of his test and stuff. But he gets played off a lot like a Mr. Mixelplick type of character. Very, all powerful but flighty kind of guy. In fact, he shows up and the first thing he does, he says, "Oh, Picard, you got old. Let me catch up." And then his actor is suddenly aged to his appropriate age to justify the fact that this all-powerful alien is aged too, because he purposely aged his avatar to match how much Picard had aged since the original TV series.
Is this their TV way of keeping the same actor for a character who shouldn't age?
Yes.
Clever.
And then
Clever.
another one that's used in this series, at least is in the first episode, is Guinan, Whoopi Goldberg's flagship Star Trek character. And in fact, included in after the first episode is, of course, the first episode of The Ready Room, which is the after show talk show hosted by Will Wheaton. And among other things, you find out during the Ready Room, Whoopi Goldberg talks about how she first got in the Star Trek The Next Generation cast because when she was a little girl, she would watch the original Star Trek, and Uhura was the only person of color, especially woman of color, that really had like a strong character role at that time in cinema. And among other things, Star Trek was revolutionary because it was the first interracial kiss on TV and everything. But Uhura was a strong female woman of color, and that told Whoopi that yes, her and women of color would be around in that future. It gave her an idea that they would have a place in that future, which is wonderful and inspiring to Whoopi. And then she found out that her friend LeVar Burton was going to be on The Next Generation, and she approached him and says, "Hey, let him know I would love to do a role on The Next Generation Star Trek." And LeVar Burton thus introduced Whoopi Goldberg to Gene Roddenberry, and that's how Guinan was born for Star Trek. And so it's a lot of neat Star Trek history that you find out in the Ready Room. Because, of course, Whoopi Goldberg is a phenomenal, not just comedian, but actress and talk show host and everything. And when they asked her to come back for Star Trek, you know, of course, Whoopi Goldberg is from The View. Sir Patrick Stewart was actually a guest on The View and asked her live on the show to come back for the new season of Picard. So that was also another thing that you learn by watching the Ready Room. So in combination, both Picard and the Ready Room are back. And if you get Paramount Plus, I highly recommend the series. Now, you also asked about the character 7 of 9. You says, is that a character? Okay, in Star Trek, I don't know how familiar you are with Star Trek. I know you're a little bit more into Star Wars. But
I saw 2 of the 3 Chris Pine movies.
Okay,
and
none of the older ones?
No, I never saw any of the older movies, and I saw a few episodes of, I think it was Deep Space Nine. There was a
space station.
I could be wrong. What I do remember is there was a guy with really big ears that like worked in a bar or owned a bar or something like that,
Yeah.
and he was always annoying people.
That was a Ferengi, and that was Quark, the Ferengi. Yeah, you're talking about
right.
Deep Space Nine.
And I hated it. I hated Deep Space Nine.
Deep Space Nine was probably my least favorite.
My hatred of watching that as a kid grew into me not watching any other Star Trek stuff.
Deep Space Nine to me was probably the least liked the original series. Although I was not a big fan of Enterprise either, because Scott Bakula was the captain of Enterprise, and I didn't think he could act. He was okay in Quantum Leap because he was supposed to be clueless, but as a starship captain, clueless just didn't work for me. So I wasn't big on Enterprise, but Star Trek Next Generation was probably my favorite of the Star Trek series, followed by Voyager. And then, of course, classic Star Trek. And I was a big fan, especially as I'm a Will Wheaton fan. I like Brent Spiner. I like, Sir Patrick Stewart, Whoopi Goldberg, LeVar Burton.
I learned about Will Wheaton from Big Bang Theory.
Wow, that's late. No, Will Wheaton actually... The first thing I remember ever seeing Will Wheaton in was a little kids movie called Stand By Me, and that was actually, if you remembered when I was talking about Sliders, Jerry O'Connell was the fat kid in Stand By Me, opposite Will Wheaton and a couple other actors, and then he grew up to become Jerry O'Connell from Sliders and The New Guy and few other things, and is now, I think he's supposed to be taking over Whoopi's spot in The View. But Will Wheaton, of course, eventually went on to do spots in Big Bang Theory, and he's been in The Guild with Felicia Day, and he's been bad guys in things like Criminal Minds. So he's been in a lot of things since. Um, but Star Trek Next Generation is really where a lot of people got their initial dose of Will Wheaton. And of course, Will Wheaton thinks of the Star Trek cast of Next Generation as a family, and as Sir Patrick Stewart as like a personal mentor and almost a father figure, because he did a lot of his growing up on that show. Um, and he hosts the Ready Room partly because of it. Now, so far in the first season, he did not show up as a guest, but he'd be one of the ones you would expect to possibly guest star in a later ish episode of Picard because of the fact that he was a kid during Next Generation. So now, as a grown up, he could show up and actually see Picard again. So, but only time will tell. Now, but I was talking about Seven of Nine. Seven of Nine is a character. Now, there's an alien evil race in the Star Trek Next Generation starting universe called the Borg, and they're all about assimilating everybody.
I know what the Borg is.
Okay.
They were a really easy concept for me to catch on because they're very similar to an X-Men villain called the Phalanx.
Yeah,
It's the exact same concept.
I like to think of them as like the Christian religion of alien races. Everybody must be assimilated. uh, but that was a cheap blow, I know. But hey, anyway, Seven of Nine was captured by the Borg because the Borg assimilates other races and then partially replaces them with cybernetic parts, very similar to the Cybermen in Doctor Who. But Seven of Nine was a warrior that escaped the Borg, and she was from Voyager, Star Trek Voyager. Captain Janeway rescued her, and she joined the crew, but she has some partial Borg enhancements. And what a lot of people who watched all of the Next Generation know is Picard was also captured by the Borg and became a Borg subcommander for a while. And so Picard and Seven of Nine have that in common, in that they've both been part of the Borg collective. And so Seven of Nine is now like a freedom fighter, using Starfleet spaceships to go out and protect people from the Borg and their deprivations and stuff. And she got brought in the first season of Picard, and she's back for the second season. So there's lots of interplay between the first and the original Star Trek and Picard to really link things up. And this season, we already know from the previews, is going to do some time travel. So Picard's crew are going to come to modern day Earth and make some changes. So we're going to mess with time. It's going to be a timey-wimey type of season. And over it all, Q is going to be, messing around with things. And Q, of course, was introduced in the very first episode of The Next Generation, An Encounter at Farpoint. So if you're into the Star Trek universe, if you love Sir Patrick Stewart and anything he can do, I recommend going back for Picard and watching season 2. I do know that I believe season 3 has already been not only approved but partially shot, because they were shooting it simultaneously with season 2, and it's either 3 or 4 will be the last season of Picard. So Picard's not meant to last forever. It's either going to end in season 3 or season 4. But if you really want to revisit Star Trek, if you're a big Star Trek fan like I am, um, Picard is definitely a TV series that you're going to want to catch up on if you're a Paramount Plus subscriber. I mean, I'm not saying to subscribe to it just for Picard. If it doesn't have any other shows that you like, then don't worry about it. But Paramount Plus also has Young Sheldon and Big Bang Theory and um, NCIS and Criminal Minds and these other shows, Scorpion. So there are other shows that you can watch on Paramount Plus that might make it worth it to you. I mean, you can watch the new MacGyver, the new Hawaii Five O. There's a lot of great shows on there to make it worthwhile to go ahead and jump on Paramount Plus. But all of the Star Trek franchise is slowly moving on to Paramount Plus as their primary streaming service. They're moving away from the other streaming. They're getting pulled from like Netflix and stuff as their contracts expire with Netflix and everything, and going to the Paramount platform. So, uh, actually, and this one says Amazon original.
Yeah.
Although I get my Paramount on Amazon, so it may have moved to Amazon. I'm not absolutely sure on this. I watched my Paramount through Amazon, so I wouldn't know for sure. But the Paramount platform I know does get all of the Star Treks eventually. So even if it is also running on Amazon, it'll make it onto Paramount too. But I'm pretty sure it's on my Paramount. No, I know it's on my Paramount Plus because I go into channels Paramount Plus to find it.
Mm.
So it's an Amazon produced Paramount Plus show, I guess. Uh, anyway, we're going to go ahead and then just that's it for that now. And we'll go on to our next topic of discussion. And this one is talking about a bundle.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, I don't want to talk too much about the this terrible conflict we're having over in the east with Russia and Ukraine too much, but Ukraine could use whatever help they can get, and so I wanted to share this fundraising effort that's going on right now, where they're calling it the Bundle for Ukraine, where you can get almost 1,000 indie games, RPGs, soundtracks, and books for a donation of as little as $10, or as much as you're able to give, to help help with Ukraine. Uh, so the and some of these games like these games some of these games cost $10 on their own. I think like Skatebird. That's a relatively new game that I think I saw for like $15 or so on my Switch. Um,
Now the question about
and
this bundle is it a tiered bundle? So if you pay for $10, you only get some of the games, and then
no,
if
it's
you
if you pay the $10, you get all of them.
all of them, okay,
You get the whole collection of content here. Now they're not like Steam library codes or whatever. They're direct downloads from the site. So
on
you
itch.io.
download them. Let's see here. It's specifically 991 things on itch.io. Um, and yeah, I mean if you can, it looks like it's. I mean it's a good cause to try to help out the folks in the Ukraine. Some of the money's going to be going to a couple of different places, like the International Medical Corps, which will provide medical assistance in the region. They have very low fundraising overhead. 1% of income is overhead, with 89% of donations going to medical aid and 10% to administration. And then
We just
also some of it's going to the Voices of Children, a Ukrainian organization that helps children cope with the horrors of war, PTSD, readjusting to school, and getting back to being kids.
okay,
They also have been doing a lot of grassroots impromptu work during the war, such as helping set up shelters. Sorry, it's hard to talk about the
yeah,
war,
It looks
So
like they've made their goal too, which was $2 million, and they're just over 2 million now at 2,027,556.84 because I just followed the link. So they have made their at least their minimum goal. They have 9 days, 4 hours, and 10 minutes left for those who might be in
9 days.
9 days, 4 hours, 10 minutes.
So, um, yeah, I didn't look at what the time frame was. I forgot to look at when it ended. It ends before my next payday, but I might just have to
It's
um
$10
go ahead
though. I
and,
mean,
and donate while I can, but prior to that, yeah,
most people can come up with $10. Shoot, I might even throw $10 at this.
yeah. So yeah, a lot of games and for a good cause to try to help people out. Um, the folks over there in Ukraine are not having a good time right now, and war is always a terrible thing. And I wanted to bring this to everyone's attention so that here's a way that you can give while also getting getting some video games back for it as well. And I'm $6,500 worth of video games is a lot of value for that $10, and or however much you are up for being able to donate to them as well. Several of these games, super hot. I've played the game super hot for a good 20 hours myself, and I paid I think $20 for it on my PlayStation. If I remember right, I think I read that they specifically were working on to get a hold of games that weren't already free, that games that do cost money to normally buy. Celeste is a game I haven't gotten around to playing, but I've heard really good things about it. Uh, there's just there's so much here to just kind of look through, and even even if most of them you don't play, just getting a handful of these would be easily worth the $10, not even considering the donation factor to it.
Right.
So none of the developers or publishers are getting money. These are donated by the publishing and developing teams behind these games that wanted to help out as well. So not a whole lot more to say. It's a subject that's difficult to talk about because I really feel for the folks that are stuck in this situation. They can't do it. They can't they can't control, and it's difficult to get out of it and everything. So we should try to do what we can. I guess, Doc, unless you had any other thoughts you wanted to add, I guess moving on to our next subject.
I just backed it, so
Did you?
yes. I just real
So
quickly did it back. I'm
I,
not going to set up my account or anything yet because I'm not going to do
yeah,
that with everybody watching me on screen. But
yeah. I only learned about it myself. I only learned about this donation. I learned about it while I was taking the shower prior to doing the show. I was listening. I was listening to a podcast while in the shower, and this came up during that, and I was like, "Oh, I have to bring this up tonight for our podcast, and I'm gonna have to contribute to it as well as soon as I got the time to get on here and make the purchase and start doing some downloading." Whew. So
okay,
DRM free, so you can like copy them and move them around as you need them too.
right. So yeah, I will definitely be finishing my setup of my login for that page after the show. I don't. I may never even open one of the games. It's just about paying the $10 to support the cause.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
I
if
will
I,
definitely.
I
I
will
am definitely
probably
going to try
try
out
a couple of
Skatebird.
them. I'll
I,
probably try a
I,
couple of them and listen to a couple of the soundtracks.
yeah. I know for sure I'm going to try out Skatebird. That'll probably be the first one I play off of these.
I think I've heard of Skatebird. I might want to look at that just to check it out.
Yeah.
But there's some
It's like a
RPGs.
it's like a Tony Hawk game, but you're a bird. It looks
Yeah.
silly as hell. I saw that when it first came out, not too long ago on the Switch, and I almost bought it. Um, I might have bought it and just don't remember buying it now. But yeah, um, so go for it. I'll be buying it after we're done with the stream.
Cool. Okay. Well, that's it. So if you want to help out, or if you just want a really great deal on a lot of indie games, which, if you remember from when Greg was one of our hosts here, he used to love to bring us bundles that did this kind of thing. And they were usually for some charitable source. We will still try to do some of that stuff, even though Greg's not here. And in reminder, while we're speaking of Greg, the game day at Holdfast Brewing Company is next week on Wednesday, the 16th. So come out to Holdfast Brewing Company and play a bunch of board games with Greg Pullman. He'll be there representing our game day there. And then you can also stick around and do the puzzle race where everybody gets the puzzle to put together. First team to put it together first wins. And you check out some great microbrews and some food. So come out to Holdfast Brewing Company, third Wednesday of every month with Greg Pullman, one of our previous hosts here. He would still be a host here except for his time and duties elsewhere kind of prohibited it. He was already missing 1 week a month when we were on Wednesdays for the Holdfast thing. So definitely check that out and say hi to Greg. And if you have any comments or suggestions for the show and you don't want to email them directly to us, let Greg know and he can get a hold of us and let us know your feedback. Oh, Geekatard's here. Yeah, and it is a great deal, Geekatard. You're right. $6,500 worth of games for $10 is hard to pass up on, and it does help the people in the Ukraine who are currently going through a lot. So we do support these kind of charities. If you cannot get out and support your fellow man in those things that it's possible to support him, then really what are you doing? Because you got to leave the world a little bit better than when you found it, is what I was always taught. But we're going to go on to our next topic now, which is, okay, we're actually not going to do that yet. Next is, I don't know why that came up first. It should have been, no, not that. There we go. Starship Troopers. All right. From the Vault. As y'all know, I like to do a From the Vault recommendation every week. And probably one of the more classic sci-fi, campy kind of movies out there is a Casper Van Dien movie that came out in 1997 called Starship Troopers. Now, it is based on a book. And to tell you the truth, I know it's not real accurate to the book. But it's been so long since I read the book, I couldn't tell you in what way. However, the movie I've seen so many times. The movie is a spoofy kind of sci-fi classic. Oh, and Geekatard says he likes your new haircut there, Lurch.
Thanks. Thanks,
Geekatard.
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 Thanks, Geekatard.
Yeah. Now, Starship Troopers. Part of what brought me onto Starship Troopers is, of course, we talked about Johnny Mnemonic last week, and one of the characters, the bodyguard character, Dina Myers, from Johnny Mnemonic, is, of course, Dizzy, one of the characters in Starship Troopers. In fact, Starship Troopers has a pretty great cast. I brought him up in IMDb, and I'll bring that up. You got Casper Van Dien, who was a guest here at VisionCon a few years back, and I actually specifically talked to him about Starship Troopers when he was here. Denise Richards, of course, played Carmen Ibanez, the girlfriend of Casper Van Dien at the beginning of the movie, and the crazy Starship pilot. Dina Myers is Dizzy. She was the quarterback of his high school football team there in Buenos Aires, and then joined with him in the mobile infantry. Jake Busey was like his right hand man, Ace. He met up in boot camp with. Let's see here. Neil Patrick Harris was Carl, his friend who was doing a study on psychic powers and enters the military. Because in the concept of the movie, you're not a citizen unless you enroll in a term of service in the military for the Federation. Uh, Citizenship only gets you, not a lot of things, but it can allow you to run for political office. It's easier to get a permit to have babies, things like that, because this is, of course, a future society. And what's happening is this alien race of giant arachnids, arachnid being the phylum that spiders are part of. So giant bugs, but they're called the arachnids, are at an interstellar war with Earth, and the arachnids attack Earth by basically hyper accelerating asteroids and shooting them all the way across the galaxy, or to run into Earth and blow stuff up. And then what they do is they go onto planets that are in contention and they fight with these arachnids. And as Carl explains in one of the scenes from the movie, you can shoot off one of the arachnid's limbs and they're still 85% combat effective. So these are some brutal, and that's just the base arachnid trooper. You later on see that there's flying arachnids. There's these giant beetles that shoot burning acid. They bore from the underground, and they eventually come up and locate a brain bug who basically is a hive mind for the bugs, because that's one of the things they're trying to figure out is there an over intelligence, or are they just running on pure instinct, because insects and bugs and stuff will take over a habitat on pure instinct. They don't actually have to have intention. And so Neil Patrick Harris, he gets games in theory when he joins the military because of his super high IQ and some Latin psychic ability. And he ends up being the commander that's ordering a couple of the raids. So you see him later on as a ranking officer. Clancy Brown plays the drill sergeant when they're in boot camp. Seth Gilliam is one of the troopers when they join up with a group called Ratchek's Roughnecks, which is the main mobile infantry group that becomes the feature of all of the Starship Troopers movies, is the Roughnecks. And Seth Gilliam is one of the original Roughnecks. Patrick Muldoon is he's one of the football players opposed to Casper Van Dien's team in the original football game, but he's flirting with Carmen, the girlfriend, and he's going to piloting school a little bit ahead of her, so that when she gets there, he becomes her training officer. And so they're kind of teamed up at that point. Michael Ironside is one of the teachers at school, and then he becomes, when they get activated and stuff, and they're in one of the big battles, they join the Roughnecks. He is actually the leader of the Roughnecks, so it's Ratchek's Roughnecks until he dies, and Rico, which Casper Van Dien's character takes over. Rue McClanahan is a teacher who's teaching the biology of the bugs, where they have to actually do a dissection of a giant beetle. I'm not sure who Marshall Bell is. Eric Bruckhottner, Matthew Levin, Blake Lively, Anthony. Brenda Strong is the captain of the spaceship that Carmen and the other guy are on the flight team for. Dean Norris is the commander in charge of the boot camp. And Christopher Curry is Casper Van Dien's father. So it's a pretty good cast. I mean, if you recognize a few of these actors like I do, seen them in a lot of different movies and stuff. Rue McClanahan, of course, was Golden Girl. Neil Patrick Harris was Doogie Howser, or from How I Met Your Mother, or Dr. Horrible Sing-Along Blog. So he's been in a lot of things. Um,
Yeah.
Ironside has been in literally everything. Casper Van Dien has been in a lot of nerdy kind of shows. Denise Richards as well. She's been she usually plays a femme fatale in various different movie incarnations. And Dina Myers, of course, is a favorite extra in a lot of sci-fi movies like Johnny Mnemonic. And of course, Jake Busey has been in everything from this to like Identity with John Cusack. So these are some great cast members. It's a great movie for you to check out if you've not had a chance to do it. It's from '97, so we're flashing back into the '90s, which is what I like to do with my From the Vault. And I like to recommend these kind of movies because some of you that are a little bit younger, haven't been quite around, not as seasoned as I am. I just turned 51 last Thursday. May not have gotten a chance to watch them when they originally came out. And one of the great concepts of the movie, before I let it go, is throughout the movie, you'll see like these news updates. And it looks like kind of a news update with like an internet interface, because it's like, would you like to know more? And there's little click links to know more. And they're very campy kind of, would you like to know more kind of features. But it's like everybody's doing their part, and you see a bunch of kids squishing roaches on the ground, and their mom clapping happy because they're squishing the roaches. When, you know, in normal actuality nowadays anyway, if you had a bunch of roaches, your mom would be freaking out because there's a bunch of roaches, but she's laughing and clapping because the kids are squishing them. But it's got all kinds of campiness to it, and they kind of have a running, like, almost joke in the boot camp too, because someone will get injured in the boot camp, and all the drill sergeant does is calls medic and then moves on. Like Jake Busey's character's like, they're throwing knives to try to hit targets, and he's like, I don't get it. What good is a knife throw when in a nuke fight, you know? You just don't need to do nothing but push a button. And he's like, put your hand against that wall. He says, what? Put your hand against that wall. He does, and he throws a knife and gets him right in the middle of the palm of his hand. He's like, if you disable, a person cannot hit a button if you disable their hand. Medic! And
it's been years since I've seen the movie, but
it was very campy.
It was campy, but it was fun.
But it's a fun campiness, and they ended up coming out with like 3 or 4, and there was even a cartoon that came out in the late '90s, early 2000s, called The Roughnecks. That was featuring Rico's Roughnecks. That ran for at least a season, maybe 2. I don't remember. But Starship Troopers 2, Starship Trooper 3, they build on the story. At least 2 has Rico in it. I don't remember if 3 does or not. I think eventually Casper Van Dien is recast by somebody else, but don't quote me on that. But definitely check out the original, and if you really get into it, then go looking for the others. And this is the movie, like I said, that's on Netflix right now. So, if you're looking to watch it and you're a Netflix subscriber, Starship Troopers is available on Netflix. So that's where you go to see it. I like to usually recommend a movie that is on one of the current big streaming services. And by big, I do not mean like Apple TV, because I know there's not many of you out there that have Apple TV. And I don't even usually do recommendations from like Paramount, but I do tend to do Hulu, Netflix, HBO Max, Disney Plus, and Amazon Prime. Because I want you to be able to go, or something you can find on like the free service like Tubi. So go out, check it out. It's well worth the watch. And I was just finishing up rewatching it right before the show. In fact, I have a few minutes left, but since I've seen it a dozen or so times in the last 10 years, let alone since it came out, and I've probably seen it 100 times since then, go ahead and definitely check it out because it's one of my favorites. And we'll catch you next week with another Tale from the Vault. And then we're going to go on to the actual media featured part of our show, which, let's see, close out, Starship Troopers, go into, okay, big release this last week, The Batman. Yeah. And luckily enough, since it was my birthday week, my gift from my girlfriend was she paid for me and my best gay to go out and see it Sunday with popcorn, mozzarella sticks, soda, the works over at the Alamo. So I went and saw the 11:20 showing at Alamo on Sunday morning. I missed the first 5 to 10 minutes of the movie, and I will admit to have dozing off in the middle a little bit, but that's not the fault of the movie as much as my chronic fatigue syndrome. So don't blame me for that. I'll definitely be watching it again when it comes on streaming. We're going to give you our first impressions without too many spoilers, because this is our first impression show. We'll add some spoilers and stuff the next time we visit the movie, which may or may not be next week. We might actually give it a couple of weeks to give people a chance to see it. But my first impressions, first of all, the Penguin, I thought was probably one of the best renditions of the Penguin from the original graphic novels to movies. They made him look like a 1920s gangster mob boss, which is really what the Penguin is portrayed as in the comic books. He's not the joke character that he was in the Adam West TV show, or even the mutant Penguin.
Pretty much every character in the Adam West show was joke characters.
That's true.
Batman was a joke character.
Yeah, the Adam West series was very spoofy. But if you were true to the graphic novels, the Penguin, he also was not a mutant penguin like in the Tim Burton line of Batman movies, although I think
Batman Forever is the one you think, or Batman,
which was no longer Tim Burton, but it was the one that
Returns.
Batman Returns.
Yeah, it was Batman Returns.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right, and since that was the second one, that one still was Tim Burton. So in the Tim Burton movies, the Penguin was a mutant. Well, by mutant in this case, we mean was born with a physical deformity, flippers instead of hands.
Yeah,
and the
I think
nose.
I've seen a lot of different versions of the Penguin. I think that's the only one that presents him as a mutant-like creature. Right.
Yeah, because really, from the graphic novels and from the comic books, he was just a 1920s gangster mob boss kind of Dick Tracy villain who was obsessed with birds and umbrellas.
Parasols. And I think he had a little bit of a limp.
Well, he had a little bit of a waddle, and he talked with a wah, 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 kind of talky thing, which you can't really tell in the comic book as much. They didn't play up the wah 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 quite as much.
I think
Burgess Meredith, I think, added that in. I think Burgess Meredith from the Adam West really brought that in, but that was followed along in later iterations of the
Yeah.
cartoon and live action versions of the Penguin.
But yeah, I mean, dress him up nice, give him a little bit of a humanistic waddle based on like a
A
limp
little
or
bit
something
more
like,
pointy nose,
and yeah, he's
and
got
and
some.
and a kind of a raised lower lip, which they do. And they actually do such a great job making Colin Farrell out to be the Penguin that even if you know Colin Farrell's in the movie, you never point out that it's the Penguin. I didn't. I was
Yeah.
like, I never saw Colin Farrell. What was he? So I had to watch at the end credits, and I saw Colin Farrell, the Penguin. I was like, oh my god, really? And Lurch, we were talking about it before the show started, and he was like, I know I recognize the Penguin from somewhere, but who is he?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so
Um,
so I think the Penguin, first of all, was one of the best parts of the new movie, in my opinion. Uh,
yeah, he was definitely pretty great. He was definitely pretty great. Colin Farrell does a great job with pretty much everything he does.
most things
Um,
that he was one of the worst parts of the Daredevil movie. In a
yeah,
movie that
but I
had a
mean
lot of worst parts, a lot of people didn't like it.
The Daredevil movie had a lot of bad parts, and I think that has a lot to do with the bad directing.
Yeah, I mean, I actually thought that the lead for the Daredevil, he didn't do too bad. Ben Affleck wasn't bad as Daredevil, but the directing and the production and everything, and Colin Farrell ruined that movie. Uh, but as far as Ben Affleck playing of actual Matt Murdock goes, I didn't think that was bad at all. Uh,
I think he did okay. He didn't do as well as his acting chops should have been. Um,
but a lot of that could be the directing.
I think everyone gave a much worse performance than they can really do, and that's why I think since every major actor in that film I know are much better actors than what we saw in the Daredevil movie.
You got to blame the direction.
That tells me it's the director's fault.
Yeah, because you
The-
know the best actor in the world is not going to help if your director doesn't know how to direct a movie.
yeah, 'cause, like Jennifer Garner didn't come off good. Come off well. No one did.
Colin
No, I
Farrell
mean,
came out
Ben,
like crap, and he's always good.
yeah,
You know, Ben Affleck's had good and bad roles, but Colin Farrell's always good, and he didn't come
hmm
out great at all
yeah,
in that movie. So, yeah. But speaking of bad portrayals, and I know I'm going to get burned for this opinion by some people, I still think that Robert Pattinson was not a good Batman. And I'll give you two reasons. I'll give you three reasons. One, I thought that the voice sounded fake when he tried to sound like the Batman. Two, his chin is way too weak to pull off a half cowl. He looked like Pee Wee Herman in a half cowl. And three, the disparity between his bulk as Bruce Wayne and his bulk in the suit was too much because Batman is still supposed to be physically fit, and Patterson rather is not as physically fit. He's too much of a beanpole for the role. I mean, yeah, he looks okay. He's a handsome fellow, but he's not cut, and it's really hard to fake it. And Batman is supposed to be at the epitome of human physical condition, not muscle bound, so he can still move, but wiry strong and muscled. So I think Pattinson fell flat in those three areas being the Batman. What I will say is the detective element of the Batman character was played up really well. So I agree with the internet reviewers that have been saying that. It did feel more like Batman was a detective. And that's something that's been missing lately.
yeah,
Now,
yeah,
Lurch, give us your impressions because I don't want them to just be my impressions.
yeah. So, I think it's funny you bring up the voice part because I mean his voice sounded like Rorschach from The Watchmen, his Batman voice. But given that, especially when you get the parts where he's like narrating, and talking about the city needs
Yeah. Yeah, it sounded
like
overly
there's
forced.
I don't want to give away like too much spoilers, but like the things that you would expect Batman to probably say. They think I'm hiding in the shadows, but they don't know I am the shadows, which is kind of a silly line, but it fits Batman. It fits Batman. Um, and that was a cool scene anyway. But it's funny that because like typically the Nolan movies are considered the best Batman movies,
Right.
but the Nolan movies had by far the worst Batman voice. The Chris, Christian Bale's Christian Bale was great in those movies as a whole, but his Batman voice just I don't know. It sounded like Maud from The Simpsons.
Really?
Give me another cigarette. Whereas in this, it was definitely, a gravelly voice, but not like he's sick gravelly, just like he's broody gravelly.
Yeah, but the thing about the Christopher Nolan movies that I saw is when he was Bruce Wayne, he used his regular Christian Bale voice, and when he was
Yeah,
Batman, it sounded like Batman trying to make his voice unrecognizable. In
yeah.
this, Robert Patterson used the same voice both as Bruce Wayne and as Batman, although he
Uh,
hardly talked as Bruce
no,
Wayne at all.
no, he didn't. It was a very different voice.
I didn't
Um,
notice it. It just seemed
it it
weak and
was it was like I don't know how you didn't notice it. It's like an embarrassingly different voice. It's like it was kind of emo-y, you know. He sounded like he belonged in a Green Day or something as a like bass player, but it was still a very different voice than his Batman voice.
maybe some more of that came out when I was having my snooze. But
I mean, he didn't talk as Bruce Wayne very much.
no, he
He was
didn't. Not at all.
he
Very
was
much.
he was he we didn't see a whole lot of that. But
No.
hell, even when he was Batman, he was not a very talkative individual. He would
Which
stand
is
there in a
Batman,
crime
you
scene
know.
and just stare at things for a while, and then everyone else would be talking, and people would ask him a question, and he just kind of look up at him and give him a little bit of side eye, and then not answer, and then walk away and look at some other evidence, and then go, and then he'll blurt out like two words because those two words are the answer to the riddle or something, and then they're
Right.
like, what? And then the commissioner, or not commissioner, but Jim Gordon, who's not commissioner yet, would be like, the riddle. He's talking about the riddle. He just gave us the answer to it.
And I will
And so
say, the Jim Gordon in this was really good. I liked Jim Gordon.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
And the Riddler wasn't bad.
yeah, the Riddler was like fucking crazy. I liked that. Like they
This is a
kind of drove
scarier
home.
Riddler than we've seen before.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is a Riddler
Like
you can be
like
afraid of as a supervillain.
like Jim Carrey portrayed him as like a kooky kind of crazy.
Well, Jim
This was
Carrey
this
portrayed him
was
like a
like
Frank Gorshin did in the Adam West series.
yeah. But this Riddler was like a creepy serial killer Riddler. It was he was pretty haunting as a villain out there on the run. Not on the run, but out there on the loose doing his
But
Riddler thing.
in fairness to Jim Carrey, he was supposed to be basing his on part Frank Gorshin and part the cartoon Riddler, since Frank Gorshin kind of set the standard. Just like Danny DeVito based his on Burgess Meredith. They were basing it on the more campy Adam West
Yeah.
series and the cartoons that came afterwards that were more based on the Adam West version of some of the
Yeah.
characters. Where on the other hand, we get like Jack Nicholson did not base his Joker on Cesar Romero. And Heath Ledger in no way based his Joker on Cesar Romero. Heath Ledger based it
So
on a comic book and the graphic novels.
yeah, he based it off of a psychopath.
He was
So anyway,
good.
yeah. Anyway, I I feel like this is a really good movie. I don't know if it's he's not my favorite Batman performance. I know this might be controversial, but my favorite Batman is Ben Affleck Batman.
I
Um,
have to agree. Ben Affleck is my favorite Batman.
and
Uh,
but once I get over the annoyance that we didn't have Ben Affleck Batman for a solo Batman film and all that, I still have to say that this turned out to be a really good movie. Even if it does run a little long, it's a 3 hour movie.
it is a 3 hour
Um,
movie. It is.
yeah, it's like 2 hours and 56 minutes. So
Yeah.
it's a 3 hour movie. And 2.5 hours in it, you start feeling it, you know? Especially like, it feels like the movie is over, but then there's a whole nother act.
Yeah. It is a good movie. I will agree. It's a good movie, despite my misgivings about the Batman part of the movie. Most of the other parts of the movie redeem it, in my opinion. Like I said, by far the best rendition of the Penguin, and one of the best renditions of the Riddler. Okay, best to second best on the Penguin and the Riddler, because the Penguin and the Riddler from the Gotham TV series were also really, really well done. So
I was
I'd
gonna
almost put
say
them on par.
my favorite rendition of the Riddler was from Gotham.
Yeah, it's
Um,
pretty close though to equal to me. I mean, they were in different ways. They were both good renditions of Edward Nygma and Oswald Cobblepot.
yeah.
Uh,
I do
the
think I do think because we didn't have a lot of Penguin. I think if
no,
I had more time to spend with Penguin of the new Penguin of the Colin Farrell Penguin from this film, I could grow to like him more than the Gotham Penguin. I think the Gotham Penguin has the benefit of longevity. I watched
well,
like 6 seasons of a show with him.
well,
Um,
the Gotham Penguin was a primary villain in several episodes, where here he was just an underboss.
yeah,
And as an underboss, which is actually where the Penguin fits better in the hierarchy of Batman villains. He's much
yes,
better as an underboss. He worked his best when he was under like the Joker or the Falcone family, or you know, Inner Gang or whatever. When the Penguin was just kind of a flunky for hire kind of guy that just did some
yeah,
underboss work, that was more the Penguin's role. Yes, he did sometimes become the primary villain all by himself, but that
yeah.
doesn't mean his first appearance needs to be that. And that's
Something
why it fits better here.
something I want to mention is that this movie has quite a few major Batman characters in it. We've got Riddler, we've got Penguin, we've got
Joker at
uh,
the very end, without spoiling
I
how.
yeah, we got Catwoman,
Mm.
and the the movie handles them all pretty well. It juggles them
Plus, you
pretty well.
got Carmine Falcone,
Yeah, Carmine
which is,
Falcone.
of course,
Um,
part of the Inner Gang later on when he
yeah,
links up with Superman.
there was some moments where I kind of felt like they were forgetting about the Riddler for a while they were like pursuing other things. But I don't know. It was my favorite part of the movie. My favorite part isn't a specific scene per se, but how in many scenes it was something they leaned into really heavy in this one. It was the tension.
The tension,
Um, and
the rogues
and
gallery of villains.
and you can't do good tension quickly, you know.
And then there was
And
the,
to avoid spoilers, I do want to give an example of what I mean about tension, describing a little bit of a scene. but it's very beginning of the movie, so it's not like any spoilery stuff. Um, this movie picks up 2 years after he started being the Batman. So he's been doing his Batman thing for a couple years. It's not an origin story about Batman.
which
And
is a relief.
in past movies, whenever they're trying to do like this establishing the world kind of shots to show how the bat signal and Batman strike fear in the villains, criminals. And in other movies they will often do a bit where they'll show criminals committing crimes, right? They're out there doing their crime thing at night. And then they see the bat signal up in the sky, and then they suddenly like, I'm getting out of here, and they like grab their drugs or they drop their drugs or whatever, and they run off or whatever it is they're doing. They immediately stop their crime and run off, and they just kind of look panicked. Which was fine for those movies, but I think I preferred the way this movie handled it, where you get the same kind of premise. You got different criminals committing crimes at the beginning of the movie. Then they see the bat signal, and then this is where I really like how they change it. Instead of them just suddenly like kind of in a panic state, walk off or whatever, they hear a sound. Like after they see the light, they suddenly become like ultra paranoid
Hyper
about
aware.
Batman, and then they'll think they hear a sound, and they'll look into a shadow somewhere, and they'll just stand there with this really frightened look on their face, staring at the shadow, thinking, is that the Batman? Did I just hear the Batman? Is he in the shadow coming at me? And it kind of like goes back and forth between showing them and showing the shadow with this with the soundtrack that's like giving this really tense beat that feels like it's like it almost feels like you're hearing the heartbeat of that criminal
the pulse
as
pound
he's
of
in this
fear,
tense moment going, oh crap, kind of
the
you kind of
pulse of
feel
fear.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the way that was the cinematography worked on that, and the sound design worked on that, and
it's very, very, very a telltale heart
the
kind of scene.
yeah, it felt like a Telltale Heart kind of a moment where there's just this tension, like, and as a fan, you're like, come on, Batman, but on the other hand, you're like, oh, this is kind of spooky.
Don't jump out! Don't
like
jump out!
you start to feel that you start to feel that goosebumps rise up on your skin in that moment,
Yeah,
and you get to see it from a few different villains experiencing this, until you see one where Batman does step out, and you're like, oh, and
then they don't even react necessarily with fear. First, they try to attack him, and then they learn better.
yeah.
And
So
we're not giving away too
um,
much, though.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was such a brilliant way of showing just
yeah,
how paranoid criminals are
yeah.
about the Batman.
The directing and the cinematography of this was very well done. It was very professional.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring up just a couple more things that we hadn't brought up yet, but that me and Lurch kind of talked about before the show started. First off, it was the overall feel like most of the upper echelon of Gotham's law enforcement and government were corrupt. But I'm not going to mention who, but it felt like the majority of people were corrupt. That's very much in play with the original Gotham that we always had, because corrupt politicians, corrupt law enforcement is a major theme throughout the Batman comics and graphic novels. And the other thing we talked about briefly was Catwoman, which we thought she was a good actress. And yes, we both agreed that the mask was not really well done. But my view of the mask is it's perfect as a starter mask. Kind of reminds me of the starter mask from Daredevil in the Netflix series, where she's improvising a mask. But next time we see her, hopefully we'll see her with an actual professional Catwoman mask.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that Lurch had said to me, is that the mask kind of didn't do it for him. It just didn't.
Yeah.
But if you
Um,
think of it as a starter and an improvised mask, then it's not so bad.
yeah. Um, I want to talk a little bit. Yeah, I want to talk about a little bit Catwoman too, because while the mask wasn't great, it was an okay mask. It was kind of a bland mask. It did have like little kind of ear things, but I think it's supposed to be like she's wearing a beanie that just happens to poke out in the corners, but it deliberately done by the directors to costume designers, I mean, to make it look cat ear esque without the character doing deliberate cat ears. I think was
A
the what they were
little
going for there.
little foreshadowing of what her eventual mask will be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think this might be my favorite Catwoman that we've had
I can agree with
on
that.
film, like in
I
regular in a
mean,
movie.
the Gotham Catwoman was great, uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think she even edges out the Gotham Catwoman. Her fighting style is excellent for what I
Hmm.
expect from the Catwoman, and her priorities are very much Catwoman priorities. Without giving any spoilers, she acts like I think Catwoman would act, with her focus being on what Catwoman would focus on, not just what a generic villain would focus on or what a supervillain would focus on, because the
Yeah.
Catwoman was more than that. The
Yeah.
Catwoman
Yeah.
is a special character in the Batman family of characters in that she doesn't 100% fit that villain's role or a hero's role, but she kind of
Yeah.
straddles that line.
So, something else I appreciated, and this might sound odd coming from a guy, is they didn't like over sexualize her. You know,
Right.
like sometimes, and it can be, it can be hot and sexy or whatever. But I think, she was her
But
character, and I think there was even
sometimes
like
they do it
moments
to
where,
distraction. Yeah.
yeah, there was this movie really like rounded her out as a a driven, powerful character. Um, and
Where she could be attractive without playing the sexy minx all the time.
yeah, yeah,
You can be
right,
attractive and not always play. It's like, how the joke is everybody wears the slutty cat outfit for Halloween instead of the cat
yeah,
outfit. She wore the cat outfit, but wore it like if she wanted to, she could have been slutty, but she didn't need to flaunt it. She
yeah. I
had
mean,
the she had the
her
attributes.
uniform, her Catwoman outfit felt more utilitarian than
Yeah,
sexy
it felt more
kitten.
natural to the role she was using it in. If she was going to be a cat burglar, you want something that's as little restraining as possible, and that means it doesn't need peekaboo breast sections, and it doesn't need straps in 50,000 places and stuff. It needs to be what it was. It was a full cat suit with a mask,
Yeah,
and she
and
didn't have to play up
I
the
think
sexiness.
I think the costume design was a lot like that for all the characters. Really, it was more uh function over form. You know.
I still
But
didn't
yeah, at
like
the
the
end of the
bat
day,
suit
I
in
think
this one.
the biggest strength of the movie is the tension and the detective work. It was
Yeah,
really nice to see Batman
become a detective
doing actual
again.
detective work.
Yeah,
You know, we saw like hints of detective work in like the Dark Knight trilogy, where he had some made up science sci-fi machine that would like analyze things for him. But in this, they're
yeah,
actually trying
yeah.
to crack riddles and find
It,
footprints
well,
and patterns and
the trouble with the like, for instance, the Christopher Nolan version is Lucius Fox seemed to do a lot of the work. That you normally would expect Bruce to do. Over and above what like Alfred should be helping him with. Yes, Alfred helped him, and Alfred helped him in the parts that you expect Alfred to help him with, but Bruce still did most of the detective work. Alfred helped him with some code breaking, but anybody who knows the origin of Alfred Pennyworth knows that he's ex British Special Forces, ex MI6, SAS. You know, he's got that background in that kind of thing before he ever became the butler for the Waynes. So it makes sense for him to do the code breaking assistance for Batman. But Batman is the one that like instantly knew the answer to the riddles that the Riddler dropped. And, you know, Batman who comes up with the other clues, like I said, I don't want to give any spoilers, so I'm not going to give specifics. But there's a certain replacement code that Batman figures out the true key to in the movie. And I'm not going to say how because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who's going to watch it.
Yeah.
Like I said, we will revisit this movie again. And now it'll either be in a couple of weeks or we'll wait till it comes to stream. I haven't decided yet. I'll get with Lurch about that. We might just wait until it comes to stream. That way more people have a chance to see it. Which would be fair. So about 45 days after it leaves theaters, it'll come to stream. And it should be on HBO Max because it's a Warner Brothers movie.
Yeah. My understanding is it's supposed to come to HBO Max 45 days after it premiered in theaters.
Is it after it premieres or after it leaves theaters?
After it's premiered in theaters.
So we got a month and a half before it should show up on HBO Max. That means mid-April, mid to late April.
I don't know if that's accurate. That's just what I've
So our estimate is mid to late April.
Yeah.
So it should be something we can cover right before Multiverse of Madness comes out in May. So,
hypothetically speaking. Yeah, theoretically.
Hypothetically speaking.
If that report I read was true.
Right.
You know.
It could be a little bit longer if it waits till it leaves theaters, because this one could sit in theaters for a little bit. Okay.
I don't know if you noticed, but AMC theaters at least, I don't know about other theaters, but at least AMC was charging extra for Batman tickets versus other movie tickets.
They were?
Yeah. It didn't affect me any because I had the AMC stub thing, and so I get a free ticket either way. But yeah, that was an interesting news thing I read about the Batman having increased prices, and I even looked at what the price would be to buy a ticket, and I think it was like $1.50 more than the other movies or something.
Different.
Yeah.
Anything to get an extra buck out of people.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to move on, and we are, like I said, in the depth of Spoiler Town now, because we are in the media section, even though we tried not to do too much as far as spoilers with Batman. From this point onward, anything could be spoiled. So if you don't want to know spoilers about what's up on your CW shows, then you probably should bid us a good night and wait to watch this when it goes to YouTube after we're done. Because we're about to hit the CW verse with Spoiler City, and it was a heck of a week for CW. It actually was, I think, also the season finales this week, which means we may not have anything coming this week.
Yeah, Legends of Tomorrow was a season finale.
I'm not sure if it was Superman and Lois was or not. But I think Batwoman was.
Finale. I mean, Superman and Lois, unless I missed an episode, has not resolved their main conflict of the season, you know?
Right. So, anyway, but we're going to go on now to the CW verse. And, of course, there we got our CW verse banner. And we're going to start this week with, of course, Superman and Lois. Now, Superman and Lois basically took up right where they left off with the conflict between Lana and her ex-husband being a big focal point of the show. But also, Lucy, Lois's sister, had a big featured role this week. because she
Hmm.
came and she visited the farm. She hung out with the boys. Um,
Yeah,
Jonathan,
Sam Lane, their father, Lois and
yeah,
Lucy's father, dragged Lucy to
to
Lois's
Lois's
house
farm.
and insisted on them getting to spend some time together and be a family.
Superman actually got captured by the DoD.
Oh, well, yeah, I forgot about that.
So
It's been
Superman's
almost a week
captured.
now.
I know. I took me a minute to remember my Superman and Lois because it's been so long since I'd seen it because I watched it as soon as I possibly could, and that was a week ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, Superman was captured by the DoD, and so he's under lock and key right now. Um, but
Yep.
it was interesting
Because that
because
soldier doesn't trust him.
he
That
had that scene
Anderson.
right, and he ended up having a fight scene that was reminiscent of the beginning fight scene that we saw with Bizarro Superman first, fighting a bunch of soldiers and stuff. Then Superman was like duplicating the same fight in the same hallway with soldiers before he was captured. So there was a little bit of like a foreshadowing because we had seen Bizarro do the same basic fight with some soldiers at one point.
Yeah.
Um, Jonathan is um, confronted by Jordan when Jordan figures out that Jonathan is using an inhaler.
Yeah.
Because while Jonathan is working, is on the field and playing, Jordan hears about how the other player that had got benched that week and was out sick or whatever had been using an inhaler that had like gave some of the like Superman powers, and then he remembered seeing an inhaler in Jonathan's bag that Jonathan had played off and said that it was his girlfriend's inhaler because she had asthma. But Jordan, smart enough to put two and two together, and figures out that Jonathan is using X kryptonite inhaler.
Yeah.
And Jonathan, when he gets confronted about it, says, "Hey, what's the difference? You know, I'm just, uh, coming in, but you're just jealous that I'm getting powers too now, and blah blah blah." And he's using every justification he can to justify his actions. When it basically means he's cheating on the football field and also risking his life because you don't know what any after effects of that inhaler might eventually be.
Yeah.
Risking not only his life but the life of people around him. Lana is basically just trying to spend time with Jordan and forget about what her father did. And Lois is investigating his um, adultery. She actually talks to the bartender. She finds out what was going on and everything, and basically asks him to leave. And that's the big focus this week on Superman and Lois. Is the a lot of the focus is on the Lana Lane family, with the side
Yeah.
focus being to Jordan. A very,
Lana's
very, very,
pushing.
yeah, a very small part of it is Superman being captured, and then after that,
Yeah.
Superman is like out of the story for the rest of the episode.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't happen till near the end of the episode.
Right,
Um, we don't see a lot of Superman, but we do. We see Superman. He goes to the funeral of
right,
the two super kids that were killed by Bizarro, and
and that's part of the
he
reason the one guy doesn't trust Superman is because he gets confronted at the funeral by the mother of one of the kids that died, and gets blamed for it because he was the commanding officer, sent him into the danger and everything. And Superman's there watching and doesn't take the blame and stuff. And then later on, Superman reveals that he has Bizarro captured, and
yeah. Superman tells Anderson that he's captured Bizarro, and he's like, "Why didn't you tell me that before?" Well, I'm telling you now. I haven't had him captured for that long. It's not like he's held him prisoner for the last month or something. It's been,
right, a couple of days, right? Really, yeah.
yeah.
Uh, but he uses that as justification to neutralize Superman. Uh,
Actually, that's not what he uses as justification. So, in the mid conversation, Superman hears people in trouble and flies off suddenly. And Anderson demands that has his people investigate where Superman just went to.
oh yeah,
And
well,
then
it just
they
turns
come
out that he
back
goes
and
to
they're
the
like,
Russian steppes and he had saved
yeah,
people from an avalanche.
he saved a town from an avalanche in Russia. And so his people come back and they tell him, and then come to his office, Anderson's office. They tell him, all right, so Superman left the funeral to go to Russia. He's like, what's he doing in Russia? Well, he saved a town from an avalanche. And he's like, and he didn't say it, but I could almost see him being like, that commie bastard, kind of a thing. And so
Well,
then
that and not sharing the information with him was a big thing. It's like, not only did you go off and help the Ruskies, but you didn't even tell me what you were doing. You just went and did it behind my back, even though he didn't not he didn't volunteer the information, but in the same time, all he's doing is protecting innocents. It's not like he's helping the government or anything.
yeah, he doesn't owe that to this goddamn um
To the American
Anderson dude.
government. He doesn't owe it to the American government. I mean, Superman is supposed to help people all across the world. He's supposed to be neutral
Yeah.
to politics, even though he says he fights for the American way. That doesn't mean
Yeah.
that the only people he's
Which
ever going to help are Americans.
which I don't think he says that line anymore. I think they had him stop saying that like 10 years ago. Like even in the comics, he denounced his American citizenship to declare himself
A citizen of the
a citizen
world.
of the world. Which I remember there was a lot of controversy when that happened, but I get it. It makes sense. And this is a repeat. Like we've seen this, a hint of this before, where Superman went and saved lives somewhere, outside of the United States, and he's like, "Hey, that country is our enemy. We would have benefited if those people had just died. Why did you save them?" He's like,
It's like they're
I'm
innocent.
not here to help your political advantages. I'm just trying to help people, protect people."
Yep.
And so yeah, this Anderson guy is just a real piece of work.
Right.
Um,
Because if Sam Lane was still in charge, Sam Lane would have understood a little bit more.
yeah,
In this version of Sam Lane, not every version, because there's been other versions of Sam Lane throughout where Sam Lane was just as much of a stickler as this guy is. In fact, the
yeah,
only reason Sam Lane is more understanding now is because in this iteration he knows that Superman is Lois's husband, so he's a little bit more accepting of the fact because it's
yeah.
now his son-in-law.
I
But
like that. I like that scene very beginning of this episode where Anderson's boss. I didn't catch her. I don't remember her name.
told him
She's
then he needs
she's
to cooperate with
yes,
Superman.
she is digging into him bad, right? And she's like, 20 years.
Sam
Sam
Lane.
Lane has never had an issue, has never caused issue with Superman, and in 6 months you have deteriorated our trust, our relationship with the most powerful defender of this country.
Yeah,
You need to fix this,
right. But then
or
they end
you're
up
gonna,
giving him,
or
well,
you're fired.
supposedly giving
Basically, I
him,
don't remember the words.
they end up supposedly giving him authorization to capture Superman at the end. We don't know for sure because we never see him get authorization, and he has lied about what he's been authorized to do before. So we don't know. But anyway,
Yeah,
so Superman Lois is still something that desperately needs to be watched. Um, there's still the conflict between Lucy and Lois because despite the fact that they were getting along in a lot of the family ways, with her being the aunt to the boys and everything, uh, she basically made an offhanded remark like, well, maybe Lois now realizes that she was wrong about the cult leader And Lois is like, no, she's still a dangerous person. And then Lucy still just can't get with it. And buys the cult leader's justification of, well, sometimes you have to force people to see the right way of things. And so she's justified in what she did. And so there's still that tension between Lois and Lucy. But Lucy has become something more towards the boys as far as an aunt figure. So that's something anyway. So the family is both coming closer and splintering at the same time. Because Lucy is helping come closer to the boys. But the boys are now splintering from each other because of the inhaler and Jonathan's duplicitous actions in using the inhaler. And then, of course, Jordan is still ripping himself apart inside because he really wants to tell his girlfriend about his powers, but he hasn't. And all this other stuff is happening. And so it's going to be interesting to see where we go from here. But Superman is basically locked up with his half-brother now, is where we left Superman. Or that's where they said he was on his way to, is to be locked up with his brother. They say his brother, but we know he's just his half-brother, which is Morgan. Anyway, that's Superman. I said we probably were not going to talk about Naomi this week, or we would discuss it if it was anything really that we thought was impressive. I will say they had a fight scene this last week, although it was relatively brief.
I didn't watch the new episode. I've been working some long hours, and so when I'm not working, I watched Uncharted and I watched The Batman.
I would like to see Uncharted still.
And then, other than that, if I have free time, what free time I had, I try to put into Horizon Forbidden West right now, which I've had that game since launch. So it's been a couple weeks, and I've got like 25 hours, which is
not much for you.
Not much for me, no.
Well,
no. So
I will say that there was a fight scene, but it was very brief, and it did not feature Naomi. It featured Hawkman. So
D.
Yeah, it features D.
Yeah, that's just his name. That's his name is D. D-E-E.
Yeah.
So,
but that was the only real fight scene in the movie.
He's a Thanagarian, but he's not Hawkman.
You keep saying that.
Huh?
You keep saying that.
Yeah, because it's true. He's the same race as Hawkman, but that doesn't make him Hawkman.
Actually, I think he's supposed to be this version of the Hawkman because the other version we had was the mystical version, which was not Thanagarian. The mystic version.
He doesn't even share a name with the Hawkman, unless they come out and say, "Oh well, D is just a nickname. My real name is, John Coder. Fuck, what is his name now? Carter.
Carter. But Carter is the mystical version of the Hawkman, not the Thanagarian version. Carter is the ancient Egyptian version reincarnated. Remember, there are two Hawkmen in the DC continuities.
They tend to make them the same.
They intermingle them a little bit. They intermingle them a little bit, but they actually are two distinct characters. It's just that they get so intermingled in cartoons and stuff that we forget sometimes that Carter is supposed to be the mystic ancient Egyptian. The Hawkman is possessed of the spirit of Anubis in the Falcon, and the other Hawkman is the Thanagarian Hawkman with the sonic mace and everything. But they blend the two because they give the Egyptian one a power mace at one point, even though that would not really be the appropriate weapon for an ancient Egyptian. But anyway, He should be using like a tulwar, which is a type of Egyptian sword like seen in the Scorpion King. The curved bladed sword called a tulwar or possibly a kukri or sickle sword. But anyway, yeah, they kind of confluence the two characters together. But if you ever read the Who's Who for Marvel back in the day, they actually distinctly have Hawkman 1 and Hawkman 2. And one's a Thanagarian and one's an Egyptian. It's just that, especially with Crisis and everything, they kind of blend everything together when they bring the continuities together. So that's the kind of the where the disconnect there comes about. But yeah, you're right. The name D doesn't match with any of the comic book versions of the human name for Hawkman, but a lot of times the Thanagarian they never even mention a human name for. So, or when he did take a human name, he took the Egyptian one's human name when the Egyptian one was no more. So he basically stepped in, and that's why he was still called Carter.
Yeah, so I mean, I haven't read the whole thing, but what I'm kind of glancing over on the Wikipedia sounds about how I remember. So he is Thanagarian, but he dies and is reborn, and at some point he died on Earth, and then is reborn on Earth over and over again, and lives through the whole Egyptian thing and to modern day, until eventually he remembers that he's originally from Thanagar and gets reacquainted with his um, biological roots.
Hmm. Okay.
And
Well,
so, anyway,
anyway, yeah, it's neither here nor there because, of course, cinematic universes can be different from comic book universes anyway.
yeah. Yeah, I mean,
So,
they could be doing a name swap like they did for the Black Canary for years on Arrow, where they called her,
Laura
oh,
Lance
yeah,
instead
they
of
called her
Dinah
Laura
Lance,
Lance, and
and
then
then it turned
eventually they
out Dinah was her
revealed
middle
that,
name.
yeah, they eventually revealed that Dinah's like her middle name or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and so
Because
it could be some shenanigans like that, but, um,
you never know. It's a
yeah,
CW verse. They do take some liberties.
yeah,
In actuality, Naomi is currently not even supposed to be part of the CW verse, but completely separate right now. So they have, as of yet, said there's no plans to bring her into the CW verse, but that may change. Uh, okay, let's get off of Superman and Lois and Naomi because, like I said, Naomi's not really going to be a feature right now unless something really significant happens. And
yeah.
we're going to go to the uh, big one this week, as far as I'm concerned, which was Legends of Tomorrow. Oh my God. First off, the big
Yeah.
reveal was they went to the fixed moment in time to try to help Alan, uh, Gwen's, and that's the name of his character's Gwen, Gwen's mate, um, Alan, at the fixed moment in time. And of course, there is a fixed moment overseer. And this turns out to be a man of color that we've seen before as an actor, but not in the CW verse. But he
Yeah,
turns out
he plays Turk on Scrubs.
right,
I
and
can't think of
he's
I
been
can't
in a
think of his
couple other
real
things.
name, but he was great as Turk on Scrubs,
Yeah,
and I'm liking him in this show too.
yeah. But he turns out to be, and that was the big oh my god for me because he says his name is Booster Gold. I was like, oh
Yeah,
my god.
yeah, yeah. That's the last sentence I think of the whole episode is that his name is Booster Gold.
Yeah, I know, and that was the big reveal, and I was like, oh my god, because I
Yeah,
mean that means so much to hardcore Justice League fans because, of course, Booster Gold was legendary for being a superhero that came from the future to the present and used his future knowledge in order to fight crime in the present and used future tech in his suit to simulate being a superhero because he wanted to be the greatest superhero in history by traveling back in history and stepping into the role. But he was, in a lot of ways, a attention-seeking media hound of a superhero.
Mm-hmm.
But he actually ends up doing some good along the way, and he ends up being one of the best friends of the Blue Beetle. So,
Blue and gold.
yep, Blue and Gold. For a while there was a team up of Blue and Gold quite a bit.
Yeah.
But Booster Gold also had his little robot assistant, which we didn't really see in this, which is probably why I didn't make the connection he was Booster Gold until the end. But we know that he was Booster Gold, and he figures out that fixed moment in time that he was protecting was basically a nothing position because nobody would bother to really attack that moment in time. It's what he found out.
Because I mean, the reason why it was a fixed point in time we discover is because the poet Alan, which he describes as he's like all I was told by the bosses was that I have to make sure that the poet dude dies.
Yep.
He didn't understand why or where things were. He just knew that the poet had to die no matter what else happened. And it turns out that the reason the poet has to die is because that's what inspires Gwen to invent time travel. And without without his invention, time travel wouldn't exist.
Or would exist much later and it'd be completely different. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why no one can come. No, that's why no one comes back and changes that fixed point, even attempts to or can't, because it would become a paradox.
Yeah, that would be a true paradox, which just wouldn't work.
Yeah, you can't prevent time travel from being invented if you're using time travel to get there.
Right. And so he basically was in a nothing position, and so he felt used and abused by the people that put him in that position. So he steals the Wave Rider and goes to the future, then comes back with the Wave Rider under lock and key because the time police have captured him and ends up capturing the Legends, and that's the last thing we saw in the episode. But during the episode, we have the Legends working to protect Alan and swap out the Alan robot for the real Alan. We find out that one of the weaknesses of Steel is when Steel gets covered by mustard gas, it eats away at his steel skin. It basically corrodes the steel skin away, and it doesn't grow back. So he's no longer Steel anymore.
It also scarred up his skin too.
Yeah, because it ate through and then reached his skin. So he's no longer Steel, and that's what finally prompts Nate to retire from the Legends and go live with Zari in the Totem. So Nate is gone. Still doesn't preclude him from coming back from a visit because he's within the Totem, although the other Zari gave him her totem so that he had control of when he came in and out.
Yeah, I'm a little confused how this is going to work now because
there's a totem and a totem.
Speaking, the totem went inside of the totem.
But that's okay because there's still her brother's totem.
Yeah.
On the outside.
I'm wondering, if he comes out, where does he come out? Does he come out where the brother is, or?
I would assume he probably has to come out where the brother is, but then now would have a totem of his own, so he could go back in on his own.
Yeah.
That's my assumption. If they even play that out, we don't know.
Yeah.
But that was the big thing. But first, we had to get to Gary finding the other Legends, which meant, he was stuck in caveman times at 30,000 BC or whatever. So
in like 30,000 BC.
Yeah.
With the caveman.
So he had to build a door just so he could unlock it to get to the mansion.
Yeah. I think it took him. I think it showed that it took him like 6 weeks to build a door out of logs that was
Logs
sufficient
and
enough for the
leaves and
magic key to
shit.
open it.
And then he used the
Yeah.
key and he disappeared inside. And they're like, "Oh, Gary, hey, what's it?" And then they find out what happened, and then that's what prompts him to come help. And then later on, Gideon finds out what happens, and she's a little bit upset at AI Gideon, but she's been alone with AI Gideon for so long now that she's starting to think like AI Gideon a little bit
Yeah.
and lose her
Yeah.
humanity. Uh,
Yeah, we're told how Gideon and Gideon have been alone together on that ship in the temporal zone for years now, doing their work. Um, while for everyone else, it's only been a matter of weeks. It's been like 6 weeks for everyone else or something, but for her, it's been
yeah,
years.
yeah,
Time travel's a bitch sometimes.
right, and then but they end up eventually, specifically, uh, Spooner and what's her name?
Spooner, Astra,
Astra.
and
For
Human
some reason, I
Gideon.
couldn't think of Astra. But
Yeah,
Spooner and Astra end up convincing Human Gideon that it's not too late. She can still embrace her humanity and stuff. And then AI Gideon downloads her consciousness into the new body she had created for the other Gideon, the upgraded
yeah,
body. And this allowed her to supersede the protocol for protection because she was now the replacement for instead of the protector of the other Gideon. So then she gives to fight it, and they end up blowing up the Wave Rider, and Astra magically puts the ship back together again.
yeah. Well, you should mention how they blow it up. They don't blow up it. AI Gideon does because they first, Astra tries to use magic against the robot Gideon, but she has magical barrier that protects her from the magic attacks. And then they shoot her in the face with a shotgun by surprise.
And it just
But then her face
rebuilds itself.
looks
Yeah.
all Terminator for a few seconds, but then heals over itself. And so they realize like their weapons they have against her aren't working. And then Human Gideon takes the shotgun and then shoots the control panel on the Wave Rider, which breaks the cloaking device, the cloaking that the Wave Rider has.
Which
And so
makes
now these World War One soldiers are seeing this, time ship parked above them, and Human Gideon is like, he's like, your job is to destroy time anomalies. Well, now you're the anomaly.
you're a time anomaly. Yep.
Yeah, now you're the time anomaly, and she's an AI Gideon, robot Gideon's like, that logically makes sense. Yes, I must destroy myself. And then she like takes the pilot seat of the Wave Rider, flies it up into the air, and then self destructs, like into the time portal,
Into the
temporal zone,
time
the
zone.
temporal
Yeah.
zone, and then self destructs, blowing herself up and the whole ship, and then Astra and the Spooner and Human Gideon are bundled together. And as the things explode, there's like a red glowy thing in the middle, and it's revealed that it's Astra using her magic to have this magic barrier protecting them.
And
And
then she
then
exhausts herself pulling all the ship back together.
then all the pieces of the ship start to glow red and start coming back together, and she finally succeeds in what she failed at the very beginning of the season of rebuilding the ship with her magic.
Yep. And
With
now Human Gideon is the only Gideon.
yeah,
And so we're going to be moving on from here, but this is supposed to be the season finale.
it is.
Legends for
I looked
sure
it
is
up.
supposed to be a season finale. So we're not going to have a Legends this week. We hopefully will have a Superman and Lois.
I think
I
we
know.
have the Flash. I think
I
the
think
Flash
the
is coming
Flash.
back.
This might be when the Flash starts again. In fact, let's double check here. Uh,
Flash 2022. Oh. Hmm. What? Tamura Morrison is in the Flash?
Wednesday, March 9th. Yep.
That's for the movie. I'm looking at the IMDb of the movie, not the show.
Yeah, Flash and Kung Fu season 2 are coming out uh, Wednesday.
All right. So yeah, we got a new Flash tomorrow. It's our first episode since the Armageddon
Yep.
mini run ended.
So, the 2022, this is January, March 9th. The Flash and Kung Fu. And then Friday, we get the new season of Charmed and the new Dynasty. Or the new things on the CW.
Mm.
Anything else, March? And Riverdale came out on the 6th.
At the very end of March, the premiere of Moon Knight comes out.
Well, yeah, I'm looking at the CW, not everything else.
Okay. Yeah. Is that it? Is that our last show?
And yeah, because you don't watch Batwoman.
Yeah.
You don't watch Batwoman, and we're at 15 minutes after 10, so we're not too bad. We used up our time pretty well. So let's look forward to the Flashnet coming up tomorrow, which means that Thursday we can start watching it. Superman and Lois should be tomorrow. We'll watch, and so next week we should have Superman and Lois and the Flash for everybody's enjoyment. And the next episode of Picard I'll cover for those who are interested in that, and the next episode of the Ready Room, if any new tidbits come in on that. We should have some more stuff in the world of console gaming. We might even have a Totodile visit or two. And I'll have something new probably from the Vault and from Kickstarter. So other than that, I don't think we have any other big movie releases that we're going to be covering this next week.
No.
If I get a chance to see Uncharted, we might talk about Uncharted next week.
Yeah, I think the next big movie I can think of is in April, and it's Morbius.
Right, and I'm looking forward to that one too. But I don't know if I'll see it in the theaters or not, because I really don't go out to theaters much.
Yeah.
I went for my birthday, but it was an tiring weekend for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll go out, but then I do sometimes have the ability to watch in other ways, but I don't always like to do it that way. For one thing, it's lower quality. But who knows what happens? But we don't have any really big movies to come out right now. Let's see. Anything supposed to be coming to streams that we really need to think about?
When does Rings of Power come out? I'm looking forward to watching that.
It's supposed to be relatively soon. I know there's a couple of things that are supposed to come out around March 11th. Isn't March 11th? That's when the Netflix Marvel shows go to Disney Plus.
March 16th.
Is it the 16th?
For that.
Okay,
yeah.
But there's some stuff that's supposed to be coming out in March. Starting March 11th, we're supposed to get some stuff to streams. I'm not sure what all those are, but I know there's supposed to be some stuff coming on. Oh, the Atom Project on Netflix, which is a time travel thing. A couple other things are supposed to be coming out soon.
Rings of Power comes out in September. It actually comes out on Squirrel's birthday.
Nice. Okay. Well, so we've got a few things coming out. So you can see us here next week, barring any complications. Like if either one of us is heavily sick, or if the weather is really bad and we can't get a good internet connection. Anytime the internet's down, of course, we're down because we're broadcasting on Twitch. But you can find us over on YouTube Old episodes by looking up Gamer Seuss on YouTube, GamerSeuss on YouTube.com, and look in the Game Time playlist, and you will see all previous episodes for the show. I will put this one up probably pretty soon, within probably an hour to a day after we end broadcast here. And so that'll be available for those of you who want to rewatch or come in and watch episodes, after they go and watch the TV series that we might have done spoilers for or whatever. And you can contact us via Facebook. You've got Lurchland or me, Clyde Star on Facebook, or GamerSeuss at AOL.com. This is my channel, the GamerSeuss channel, which right now the only scheduled show I have is this one, but I am also doing some random showings of Old School RuneScape right now when I feel up to it. They're usually overnight because my big audience for that is in Australia. But if you tune in after about 10 or 11 o'clock at night, you will sometimes find me playing Old School RuneScape. I might also play a little bit of Lost Ark. I haven't decided yet. And of course, I do have EverQuest on the Mischief server that I could play. And the Fractured beta test should be starting soon, like by the end of the month, I'm hoping, or the very beginning of next month. As far as Left Claw Studios goes, they're on semi-permanent hiatus right now, although you can still catch some of their stuff on their YouTube channel. And
yeah, we still have over
the
400
channel.
videos on the YouTube channel.
And if he does any new stuff, it'll at least go to YouTube, even if he doesn't live broadcast it. So you've always got that, but of course, lives are getting busy, especially as we are amping up more and more towards the Gaming Arts Media Entertainment Expo. That's of course coming in October. More and more of our time will be spent on that as well. So if you do want to participate in that, like we said at the beginning of the show, please just join the Eclectic Endeavors group on Facebook and keep a track of when we do our next meetings. We'll try to mention when our meetings are coming up here as well. And just to remind people, we do need, if we want to have it this year, we need somebody to run the costume contest and the art show, just as an example of a couple of areas where we do not have people to run it. Plus, we're always in need of just regular henchmen, which they really help get the show off the ground, because without henchmen, we really could not do the convention at all. So join us in October for the convention. $10 will get you in for the entire weekend. That's a lot of fun for $10. You cannot beat that price with a stick. Or a lightsaber or whatever. Anyway, we will catch everybody back up next week with what's going on in our area of the Nerdosphere. And you can always let us know. And if you ever want to join in and talk to us while we're doing our show, you can come into my Discord channel. And let me see if I've got my... I don't have my bot running right now. Never mind. I'll do that in later time. But you can join the Discord channel. Look up GamerSeuss on Discord and join my channel. And then we are typically in the voice channel of Game Time, and we're on the Twitch broadcasting chat channel. So you can come in and you can talk to us there as well. And who knows, you might even get to hear your own voice on the show as we interact. Because sometimes we'll get a guest speaker that we schedule, and we don't mind, sharing the airwaves sometimes with somebody else who might be knowledgeable of some of this stuff, who wants to share their knowledge with everybody. So don't forget us, but regardless, may all your rolls be critical hits, or at least may the fumbles be awesome. And remember, at the end of the fight, when you're just about to take the guy down, finish him. Fatality. Good night, everybody.
Peace, guys.